The World Cup produces moments to last a lifetime. Countries around the world face each other under the bright lights of the biggest stage in football. For 1 month straight, we watch them battle it out for a shot at immortality. Until the World Cup final, we await the two nations battling for the title under the eyes of the planet. However, the magic of the World Cup lies on untold stories. Stories that to people alive to watch the spectacle, remember for their entire lives. The Morocco team of 2022, who surprised everybody after knocking out Spain and Portugal to become the first African nation to reach a World Cup semi-final.
And the series!
Or the Croatia team of 2018, after smashing a Messi-led Argentina side and surviving the gauntlet of 3 consecutive extra time matches and 2 successful penalty shootouts, warmed the hearts of neutrals worldwide. These teams are commonly called by the media as dark horses. The expression dark horse, a previously lesser known person, term, or entity who unexpectedly emerges to prominence or succeeds in a competition. It also refers to who keeps their hidden talents, skills, or ambitions secret until they surprise everyone. In that narrative, Morocco and Croatia could be considered as dark horses of the World Cup. In spite of that, both nations had superstars of their own. Morocco had a world-class player in Achraf Hakimi and tricky winger Hakim Ziyech. Croatia had one of the best midfield trios in the world with Luka Modric, Rakitic, and Brozovic, as well as other important known role players like Ivan Perisic and talisman Mario Mandzukic. With a given context, I would like to present you the last true World Cup dark horse, the team that came to the eve of the World Cup with no media, no limelight, no expectation other than a 0-point exit in a group surrounded by world-class former World Cup champions and bastions of the game. I would like to present to you the 2014 Costa Rica. Costa Rica had to endure to qualify to the 2014 World Cup. This is a nation with a very limited World Cup experience, having only qualified 3 times, in 1990, 2002, and 2006. However, it is surprising considering Costa Rica was still considered one of the lucky teams to qualify out of North America. Usually, those spots would go straight away to Mexico, the US, and a lucky bystander nation, such as Honduras and Costa Rica themselves. In qualifying for the 2014 World Cup, thanks to recent qualifications in 2002 and 2006, it allowed Costa Rica to start qualification in the 3rd round of CONCACAF qualifying. After 2 expected defeats to Mexico, Costa Rica easily navigated past El Salvador and Guyana to finish 2nd in the group with an impressive 9 positive goal difference. Final stage of qualifying out of CONCACAF is called the Hexagon. 6 teams remaining decide the final 3 guaranteed spots to the World Cup stage and the 1 playoff spot, where Costa Rica surprised everybody after beating both Mexico and the US to clinch 2nd in the Hexagon, automatically qualifying to the World Cup for the 4th time in the country's history. From the results demonstrated, it would make it sound like Costa Rica had a really good team, but the media would wonder if that was really true. Their best player by far at the time, according to public belief, was the 26-year-old attacking midfielder Bryan Ruiz from Fulham, a player established in the Premier League for half a decade. They also had a promising youngster from Arsenal called Campbell, a 19-year-old alone Olympiacos who eventually scored a goal against Manchester United in the Champions League that season, as well as under-the-radar fullbacks in Gamboa and Oviedo. Bolaños, a midfielder with European experience, and also a young, lesser-known goalkeeper from Levante in Spain called Keylor Navas. It was a neat team, good enough to maybe get out of their World Cup group if they get lucky in the draw, and that was anything but the luck they had. Costa Rica was drawn into the group of death of the 2014 World Cup, sharing the group with World Cup winners all across the board: Italy, Uruguay, and England. As the draw was made, people would not even give the time of day to consider Costa Rica as a genuine World Cup team for that year, so much so that people making their predictions for a month prior to the tournament would even forget to mention their names, purely based on the group they were in. But that never mattered truly to the Costa Rican players, as the Costa Rica coach Jorge Luis Pinto would mention after the World Cup ended. We always thought we would win. Everybody who comes to play at a World Cup thinks they're gonna win it. The other teams were really difficult, but we came with victory in mind. They had extra reason to believe in the impossible. Costa Rica held the 1990 team in a very bright light for that reason. It was the first time they qualified for the competition, and in spite of the expectation around the team being non-existent, they qualified out of their group and made it to the second round. So this technically already happened before. Midfielder Celso Borges mentioned on the eve of the tournament beginning, "We spent years talking about the 1990 team. Many young people did not experience that, but we're now creating memories for them." However, when it was time to see the team in action at the World Cup, the first cracks started to show. Goal for Costa Rica entering the tournament was basically to do what Cape Verde recently did against Spain, to not concede. They lined up with a 5-4-1 formation, already being cautious, especially when facing an attacking demon in Luis Suarez, Diego Forlan, and Edison Cavani. Despite Suarez not starting on that match, the opening stages went exactly as everyone expected. Uruguay controlled the ball and pushed Costa Rica deep. Costa Rica sat in a compact 5-man defensive shape and looked happy just to survive. For roughly 20 minutes in the match, it felt like a matter of time before Uruguay scored. Uruguayan centre-back Diego Lugano played a ball into the box. Costa Rican defender Junior Diaz clipped Lugano, and the referee points to the spot. Penalty to Uruguay. And they finally got the breakthrough they thoroughly deserved. Cavani calmly sent the goalkeeper Keylor Navas the wrong way, and at this point, nobody watching thought anything usual of what was happening. Many smaller nations concede one and then completely unravel, but Costa Rica didn't. Joe Campbell started finding space, Bryan Ruiz became more influential, and Uruguay gradually retreated as if it was a sign of things to come. And finally, the second half, the moment everything changed took place. Costa Rica worked the ball into the box with a cross that wasn't fully cleared. Joel Campbell, at 19 years old, controlled brilliantly, turned his defender and smashed a left-footed shot into the roof of the net. Costa Rica had scored their first goal of the tournament. The group of death suddenly had a pulse. Uruguay looked shocked. The stadium crowd, made of mostly neutrals and Brazilians, began turning in Costa Rica's favor. You can almost feel the momentum swing watching the replay. For the first time, Uruguay looked nervous in the match. And just 3 minutes after equalizing, Costa Rica wins a free kick. Bolaños delivered it into the area as centre-back Oscar Duarte got between Uruguay's defenders and headed it home. 4 minutes earlier, Costa Rica were losing, and now they're on the ascendancy. As the entire stadium erupted, witnessing a great underdog story the World Cup always delivers. This is where Costa Rica's tactical discipline becomes incredible. Instead of sitting back completely like a smaller team snatching the lead from the favourites, Costa Rica kept pressing, carrying the ball forward, continuing the attack with purpose as if they were the favourites in the match themselves. Uruguay looked rattled, their passing became rushed and the midfield lost control of the game entirely. In spite of Suarez coming off the bench, things didn't change. Costa Rica broke forward and Marco Ureña timed his run perfectly to head the ball past Muslera. 3-1, game over. Comeback was complete. Costa Rica entering the group were an afterthought. Now they were the World Cup darlings, an unknown team from Central America managing to defeat the Copa America champions and recent World Cup semi-finalists with surprising ease. The international media instantly framed it as the first massive shock of Brazil 2014, calling it the biggest upset of the World Cup so far, saying Uruguay's ambitions were suddenly in disarray. Jorge Luis Pinto, the Costa Rica manager, said the key was the players remained balanced and did not panic. Campbell's goal and overall performance made him the instant poster boy of the result. Pinto praised him as uncontainable for the Uruguay defense. For Costa Rica, Campbell went from an Arsenal loanee most casual fans praised without reason to one of the breakout names of the early tournament, and they will need all the momentum of this win forward because the next task was a 4-time world champion with redemption in their sights: Italy. Winning one World Cup game is trivial, but winning 2 guarantees the nation's spot in the knockout stages. That's why this match was of utmost importance for both nations playing that match. Italy had recently an embarrassing title defense in 2010, finishing last of the most manageable group of the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. After convincingly beating England in the first game, both nations came into the match hoping to get the win that crosses the line and get out of the group. Costa Rica lined up with no changes, same formation and players. They knew their strengths and they know how to exploit a more talented team. The match conditions even satisfied more the Costa Rican players, as most were already used to the hot and humid temperatures that found itself in the Arena Pernambuco. Most Italian players were stressing the heat as a disadvantage. Unlike Uruguay, through the start of the match, Costa Rica weren't sitting deep this time. Immediately, they pressed aggressively. They were finding pockets of space to work key passes. Italy expected a reactive Costa Rica team. Instead, they got an aggressive side that didn't let them breathe for a second. With the offensive prowess in full display, Costa Rica found the only goal of the game just before halftime. Bryan Ruiz rose above the Italian defense and narrowly scored the winner.
Ruiz gets the ball down and in. The final whistle. You know the way to sit out without even playing them, and they've left.
It was over. Costa Rica did the unthinkable. In a group surrounded by World Cup favorites, Costa Rica got the 2 wins they needed to qualify out of the group of death. Nobody predicted it. The results also made the final match a walk in the park, since Costa Rica's win already knocked out England away from the competition, and on the match with 2 nations with already sealed destinies in the World Cup, a dry 0-0 draw ensured Costa Rica not only qualified out of the group of death, but topped the group with 7 points, 1 goal conceded, and no defeats. The dark horse was truly running the show. The media frenzy was relentless. Brazilian tabloids were calling the surprising team Costa Zica, purely based on the surprising outbreak on the competition. Let's find out in the bright lights of the knockout stages, the players will feel the pressure. Costa Rica arrived to the round of 16 as winners of the group of death and undefeated, and yet many people still believe that the dream run would end here. Greece were more established, more experienced. As a European team, it was already expected that Costa Rica would crumble when everything was on the line. Both teams began cautiously the match. Neither wanted to make the first mistake. Costa Rica were defending in their familiar shape that they did in the group, as Greece attempted to slow the tempo of the game and play for their strengths. However, the one name that was expected to be heard throughout the competition finally came alive. At this point in time, Keylor Navas was just along for the ride in the group stages, as the outfield players got all the credit for wins against Uruguay and Italy. Now it was time for him to take center stage and put his name on the map. Keylor Navas performing miracles. Bryan Ruiz, as the star outfielder for Costa Rica, delivered again, scoring first blood. Momentum was heavily in Costa Rica's favor till Oscar Duarte, the reliable rock in the Costa Rica's 5-man defense, gets sent off after a second yellow. With the tempo of the game changing, Navas had to stop several chances from a desperate Greek team, and he did time and time again, miraculously keeping the lead alive for Costa Rica. At the 90th minute, a shot spilled from Navas turned into the Greek equalizer. Extra time would begin favoring Greece, with 1 extra man on the pitch, and the recent goal gave momentum for Greece to keep attacking, as Navas will be there again and again to save Costa Rica, possibly the best match of his stellar career. Navas kept Costa Rica alive to see the penalty shootout, and after both sides converting 2 penalties each, Costa Rica scored their third, while Theophanes Gekas would take the third for the Greeks. And in 1 split second, football history was changed forever. Bryan scored the final penalty to win the round of 16 match for Costa Rica. World was trembling with excitement. The nation expected to become the punching bag of the tournament was now in the best 8 nations in the world. After the Uruguay game, journalists called it an upset. After Italy, journalists called it a shock run. After Greece, journalists started treating Costa Rica like one of the stories to be told for World Cup history. Finally became the tale we know today. The thought of fans watching this Brazilian team move forward started the belief that maybe Costa Rica can go all the way. Before the tournament began, bookies like Bet365 and Ladbrokes handed Costa Rica a 2,500 to 1 odds to win the World Cup. After qualifying for the quarterfinals against Greece, bookies changed it to a 100 to 1 odds, scared that the result of Costa Rica winning it could bankrupt their entire businesses. It was time to truly put them to the test. It was the toughest task yet. The dark horse and the World Cup darling would face the mighty Netherlands of Robben, Sneijder and Van Persie, the same team finalists of the previous World Cup, with their first World Cup title on their minds. However, at the time of this match, the media landscape around Costa Rica had entirely flipped. Dutch manager Louis van Gaal showed enormous respect as the Dutch team spent days studying Costa Rica's defensive structure. Nobody was laughing anymore. Costa Rica had earned everyone's respect. The Netherlands immediately controlled possession of the game, and Costa Rica's 5-man backline alongside Keylor Navas had their work cut out in front of them. They needed to survive. Navas kept saving dangerous chances, first out of a young Memphis Depay, and then a Sneijder free kick. Joel Campbell had a tough chance in the second half that could have resulted in Costa Rica's ticket to the semis, but to no avail. For the rest of the 90 minutes and extra time, it was the Netherlands suffocating Costa Rica to its last breath, Navas doing miracle save one after the other. Navas being able to fight off world-class players under the light of the World Cup caught the attention of several clubs worldwide, keen on having his signature. The match would end in another dreaded penalty shootout. However, just before the penalty kicks were called, Louis van Gaal did something so unpredictable it left an eternal impact on how we see penalty shootouts today. He subbed off the first choice Dutch keeper in Sillissen for the third choice keeper Tim Krul. Usually, a player only gets subbed on for an injured keeper, so this caught everyone at the stadium and the world watching off guard. Bryan Ruiz would start the penalty shootout as Costa Rica's best outfield player in the competition. However, it would eventually prove Van Gaal's decision as a masterclass.
And here comes Ruiz, and Krul gets down and saves it this time!
Krul saved the first penalty, giving Netherlands the momentum. Van Persie would eventually convert. Celso Borges and Robben would score both the pens. So would Giancarlo Rodriguez and Sneijder afterwards. Joel Campbell took in the pressure at just 19 and scored his. However, a penalty converted by Dirk Kuyt gave Netherlands a match point. The score was 4-3 to the Dutch. If Ureña missed, Costa Rica's fairy tale run would finally come to a close. Ureña had confidence in his side after scoring the last penalty against Greece to qualify Costa Rica to this very quarterfinal. If only Netherlands didn't sub in Krul.
It's a man who steps up, and Krul has saved it! It's Krul for the Dutch! It's Kruller for Costa Rica! The goalkeeping hero who came on for the bench!
It was over. The greatest fairy tale in sports history finally came to an end. People around the world felt sadness after elimination. However, praise Costa Rica for getting so far, creating unforgettable moments, and proving that football is decided on the pitch and not with expectations. Costa Rica's World Cup performance in 2014 was of 2 wins, 3 draws, and no losses, becoming one of many World Cup nations in history to leave the World Cup without losses in 90 minutes and without the trophy. They came home as the greatest Costa Rican team ever. Before the tournament, they were expected to finish bottom of the group of death. After it, they had finished above Uruguay, Italy, and England, reached their first ever World Cup quarterfinal, and left the tournament unbeaten in open play. Keylor Navas had the biggest individual aftermath. Navas went from a solid Spanish league goalkeeper at Levante to one of the faces of the tournament. Within weeks, Real Madrid triggered his €10 million release clause and gave him a 6-year contract to become a Galactico. Long term, he became the biggest Costa Rican footballer of all time. After stints at Real Madrid and PSG, Champions League titles, and over 100 Costa Rica caps, Navas later described Brazil 2014 as his most significant national team achievement. Joel Campbell's performance against Uruguay and the great attacking displays in knockout stages made people suddenly remember Arsenal had a signature. Right after the match, reports were already saying he would return to Arsenal after the World Cup and would be a key figure on Arsene Wenger's starting 11. But in a bittersweet destiny, World Cup made him famous, but didn't turn into the elite club career people expected. He had flashes, loans, and moments, but never became the Arsenal star the tournament made possible. Bryan Ruiz was already Costa Rica's captain and the best attacking leader, but the Italy goal turned him into a national symbol. FIFA later highlighted Ruiz and Navas as the key figures in that historic qualification run. The most shocking aftermath, however, was of the manager Jorge Pinto. After producing the greatest tournament in Costa Rica history, Pinto stepped down within weeks. Reports at the time said he left because of disagreements inside the staff setup. He even used the phrase, "I slept with the enemy." Whatever that means for his career and personal life, it resulted in him departing Costa Rica weeks after the country's best World Cup showing. Costa Rica qualified for later World Cups in 2018 in Russia and in 2022 in Qatar, but never came close to the heights and performances of Brazil 2014 again. Same generation would eventually age, coaches would leave, and the magic could never be recreated. Costa Rica didn't become a world power after 2014, and that's what makes the story beautiful. For 1 month, a team that was never supposed to matter stood in the middle of football's biggest stage and made everyone look at them. The near-perfect story, the hardest working hidden gems, the shared love of football fans makes it for the last true World Cup dark horse.